To calculate the price elasticity demand and to justify whether the demand is inelastic or elastic, we have to use a formula, and that formula is given in my slide, which is price elasticity demand ED is equal to percentage of change in quantity demanded, which is QD, divided by percentage of change in price, which is P. So back to the question, we know that QD is equal to negative 4%, while price is equal to 12%. So using the formula, you just gotta fill in those numbers, meaning ED is equal to negative 4 divided by 12. And the answer should be negative 0.33. We gotta ignore the negative sign. So the value is 0.33. We know that if the number is less than 1, it indicates that the demand is inelastic. So the answer to this question is the price elasticity demand is 0.33 and the demand is inelastic. Changes in household income may definitely affect the price elasticity of demands in many ways, especially towards tourism. Now, why do I say this? First, when the income increases in the household, consumers will gain more access to discretionary funds, which most likely will be spent on non-essential goods and services. For example, buying new model of smartphone, even when their current one is still working completely fine. So this scenario resulting in a more elastic demand for tourism services due to their increased and improved level of income. Not only that, but there will be a greater demand for a more luxury and premium tourism services. On the other hand, when the household income drops, consumer will most likely focus more on the essential goods and services rather than the non-essential goods and services, and that includes travel plans. As a result, demand for tourism become less sensitive to price changes since those with limited budget will cut off travel plans completely. Not only that, but reduced income level may foster a tendency towards a more affordable travel plans, where even slight price changes can greatly affect the overall demand for tourism. Last but not least, inflation has the potential to affect a consumer's purchasing power. Let's take, for example, a household may experience a rise in their paycheck, but with the cost of living that kept on rising, their income could simply decline. Therefore, despite an increase in their income, the rising price may still affect a household's capability to purchase the same goods and services as they did before, especially in the context of tourism. This scenario leads to an elasticity of demand for tourism, despite the observed growth in nominal income.
For question 2, suppose an 8% increase in household income results in a 12% increase in demand for luxury goods such as imported cars. Calculate the income elasticity of demand for imported cars. To calculate the income elasticity of demand, we use the formula the percentage change in quantity demand divided by the percentage change in income. So the percentage change in quantity demand is 12% and the percentage change in income is 8%. Next, divided 12 by 2, which gives us 1.5. This means the income elasticity of demand for imported cars is 1.5. Since the income elasticity of demand for imported cars is 1.5, we classify them as a luxury goods. This tells us that as people's income rise, they are likely to spend more on imported cars compared to other types of goods. Here is the curve showing the relationship between income levels and demand for luxury goods. The curve illustrates that as income increases, the demand for luxury goods rises at a faster rate, consistent with luxury goods being income elastic. For the second question, in what manner might the alterations in income level addressed in the article influence the demand for these goods? So, the article reveals that the higher income lead to increased demand for luxury goods. It all comes down to disposable. When households have more money, they tend to buy luxury items such as imported cars. Luxury items like imported cars attract more buyers when people feel financially secure. This psychological shift means higher earners tend to allocate a greater portion of their budget toward these purchases, further boosting demand. Higher household income leads to increased interest in luxury items, with imported cars frequently being a top choice. This demonstrates how economic factors like income levels can shape consumer preference and drive markets.
Next one, I will explain how to calculate the cross-price elasticity of demand between two goods, steel and aluminium. So first, let's look at how to calculate the cross-price elasticity of demand, EDC, between steel and aluminium. So the formula is change in quantity demanded per change in price of steel. So given the price of steel increased by 15% while the demand for aluminium increased by 10%. Substituting the values into the formula, which is 10% per 15% equals to 0.67. So the cross-price elasticity is 0.67. So for the next question is determine whether these goods are substitutes or complement. So the cross-price elasticity of demand between steel and aluminium is 0.67. This positive value suggests that two goods are substitutes. Based on the result, the positive cross-price elasticity confirms that steel and aluminium are substitutes. This means businesses can switch between using steel and aluminium depending on price changes. So basically, the article highlights that Malaysia's manufacturing sector is a key driver of growth with rising demand for raw materials like steel and aluminium. The increase in aluminium demand when steel prices rise supports the conclusion that these goods are alternatives in production and industry usage changes. Thank you.
For the question 4a, it asks us to calculate the price elasticity of supply for electronic goods. Is the supply elastic or inelastic? So to decide whether the supply is elastic or inelastic, we need to use the elasticity of supply equation, which is change in quantity supply divided by change in price. That is 5% divided by 12%, and we will get the answer, which is 0.417. 0.417 is less than 1. So therefore, the supply is inelastic. Other than that, we can illustrate this using the elasticity graph. From P0 to P1 is bigger than from Q0 to Q1, which means the change in price is bigger than the change in quantity. So it makes the supply for electronic goods is inelastic. So after we settle discussion about question 4a, let's move on to the question 4b. For the question 4b, it asks us to discuss two factors based on the article that might contribute to the observed elasticity in the manufacturing sector. For the first factor that I choose from the article is global trade dependence and external shock. As we know, Malaysia's manufacturing sector relies heavily on export. That means if the bigger global market, such as China, experience downfall, we, Malaysia, especially in manufacturing sectors that relies heavily on export, will be affected too. Why? Because as the article said, Malaysia's trade-reliant nation remains vulnerable to global volatility. That means we still rely on them. If they experience downfall, so we will experience downfall too. For the point 2 is time frame. We're gonna use the same phrase in the article, that is Malaysia's economy remains vulnerable to global volatility. It also hints that challenge in update or investing in new manufacturing technology. Just like the point 1, we still rely heavily on export. So we still need to use the other country machines. Manufacturers in Malaysia still use the older machinery or system that cannot scale up quickly. To scale up quickly, it takes time and money to improve technology, making the supply of goods inelastic in the short run. That means we need to spend a lot of money to improve our technology such as machinery and system to make our production scale up quickly. So that's why for the question, it said that our production is increased by just 5%, even though our price is increased by 12%, which is mean it is inelastic.